Hello guys, this is Trinity Storm here and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to do a short movie on what if Naruto died in front of Hinata. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Neji took a quiet step toward the practice field. He had no idea what he was supposed to do. He had previously attempted to assist but had been unsuccessful. It wasn't as if anyone had offered him any helpful advice. Go speak with her. Sure, talk to her, but what exactly should you say? He could hear her grunting and the loud cracks of her fist hitting a tree as he approached. He counted 7 felled trees near her, and the one she was slamming into was already broken about a third of the way through. At the very least, she had kept herself busy. That had to be preferable to moping in her room. He came to a halt about 10 yards behind her and was about to speak, still unsure what to say. Good day, Neji. She got there first. Her Byakugan was active, so it was no surprise that she was aware of his presence. Did you come here on your own or were you sent? Actually, both Hokage-sama and Kurenai-san asked me to speak with you. They are both concerned about Hinata well-being. Sama's. Neji, the older brother, have already told you not to call me that when we're not in front of Hiyashi. Simply call me Hinata-chan or Hinata. Throughout her speech, she never stopped hitting the tree. Her appearance was just one example of how she had changed. Her hair was now kept very short and didn't appear to be combed very often. She was dressed in knee-length black cargo pants and a sweat-soaked black cotton t-shirt. She didn't seem to care about her appearance anymore, and black had become her go-to color. There had also been numerous other changes. Everyone is worried about you, Hinata. I'm assuming no one includes Hiyashi. The bitterness in those words surprised me. It sounded like something he'd said before learning the truth about his own father's death. Hinata never spoke in that tone about anyone, least of all Hiyashi. While Hiyashi-sama has not inquired about your situation, I am sure he is concerned as well. Why are you bothering, Neji? You and I both know that my father regards me as worthless. That is not true, Hinata. It is, and we are both aware of it. The only thing that has changed is that I no longer care. There was no heat, no feeling in those words. His own Byakugan's heart rate had not increased. Hinata, I'd like to try to assist. There's nothing I can do, Neji. I'm fine. How come you're crying? After one of her punches missed the target, she came to a halt. She just stood there with her back to him, sucking in air and huffing as her heart rate dropped. He said nothing. He was nothing if not patient. She turned around to face him after a few moments of silence. Her cheeks were flushed, but she smiled. Sometimes I despise the Hyuga gift. He nodded, having felt the same way many times before. If you're wondering why I'm crying, it's not because of Hiyashi. You're crying over him. He stated it simply. It was no secret what had caused her to change so drastically. I understand, Hinata. No, Neji. I don't believe you do. Her words were bitterly cold. Have you ever in your life loved someone wholeheartedly, without reservation or condition? Neji stiffened and locked his gaze on her. It's my father. Hinata was the one who averted her gaze. When she spoke, her voice finally had some emotion to it, a little of the old caring Hinata. Neji, I sincerely apologize. He nodded and took a deep breath. He wasn't mad at her. It's fine, Hinata, but you see, I know what it's like to lose someone who means everything to you. And look at what it did to you after only 10 years of blaming fate for everything and despising the Hyuga main branch. During any of those times, I wouldn't describe you as cheerful or happy. That is correct, Hinata. My father's death caused me great pain for a long time. As a result, I want to help you avoid the same fate. She burst out laughing. That caught him off guard. She quickly regained control. Forgive me, Neji, but it's amusing to hear you, of all people, talk about avoiding fate. I switched Hinata. She gave a nod. And who was it who assisted you in changing? He locked his gaze on her. They were both aware of the answer. I don't think I'll be as fortunate. She took a towel from her bag and began to dry herself. He knew she'd be offended by what he was about to say, but he couldn't think of anything else. This is not something Naruto would want for you. She acted before he could finish his sentence. Even with his Byakugan activated, she was moving faster than he could see. She used her Juken fighting style to close the gap between them in one bound. He barely had time to raise his arms before she was on him. She struck quickly and hard, closing 8 chakra points on his chest. He felt as if his ribs were trapped in a vice. He could hardly breathe. Despite his strength and skill, he knelt and struggled just to keep breathing. Hinata was standing over him, her left palm drawn back and ready to strike, her eyes filled with rage. Don't tell me what Naruto-kun would have like. You hardly knew him, but I adored him. He truly believed Hinata was prepared to kill him for what he'd said. Despite the fact that it hurt like hell, Neji managed to say something. I know. He wanted friends to be happy. Her eyes shifted as a result. The rage in her eyes had subsided, and he could see new tears. Her left hand shot forward, striking his chest 8 times more. Suddenly, the vice vanished, and he could breathe freely again. He remained on his knees, however, as he lacked the energy to stand. She shifted her gaze away from him. Neji, please accept my apologies. The pain in her voice was palpable, and he didn't need his special vision to notice she was sobbing. It's fine, Hinata. I comprehend. Nobody thinks you shouldn't be sad, but it's been a month. Has it really happened? It's only been a week or so. When you're busy, time seems to fly by. It is time for you to return to your training and your team, Hinata. No, my time with Team 8 has come to an end, and I'm done with medical jutsu. I have about 2 months of training left before applying to the Anbu Black Ops unit. Neji locked his gaze on her. She would have stunned him even more if she had revealed that she was a Mist Nin deep cover agent. Hinata. That was Kakashi's old unit, and they were experts in assassination. She only nodded. The Hokage will never let it happen. I'll pass the Anbu exam, Neji, and if she doesn't put me in Black Ops, I'll flee Konoha and become a missing nin. Neji rose to his feet and approached her. She was crying, but her expression was fixed. Hinata, don't even make a joke about it. Every word is true. She fixed her gaze on him. Neji, how many men have you killed? What had happened to her, he wondered. What on earth had happened to her? I'm pretty sure it's 11, but it could be 20 or 30. In a big fight, you can never be certain. Even though he disliked discussing it with his teammates, discussing it with her seemed inappropriate. They claim Kakashi murdered over 200 people while he was with them. Do you realize I've never murdered anyone? That's why I need to join Black Ops and learn how to kill. I must learn to do it correctly and without hesitation. Why? What could you possibly need to know, Hinata? Because it's the only way for me to realize my dream. He looked at her, perplexed. None of this made sense. I thought your ambition was to become clan chief. That was never my dream, Neji. Hiashi and Hanabi have complete control over Hyuga. I couldn't care less. I used to have 2 dreams every night. First and foremost, I wanted to earn my father's respect. Second, I wanted Naruto to acknowledge or return my feelings. I've lost both dreams. One is gone forever, and the other no longer matters to me. So I created a new dream to give myself something to strive for. He was terrified, but he needed to know. What is your new ambition, Hinata? She gave a cold smile. Can you tell me anything about how he died? There wasn't much to say other than it was an S rank in T country and Akatsuki was involved. I bumped into Kakashi, Sakura, and Kiba, but none of them said anything. Neither would Hokage-sama or Kurenai, for that matter. That was not without reason. The council convened as soon as they received Kakashi's mission report and passed a decree making the mission details an S-rank secret. Anyone who revealed those details would face immediate execution without a trial. As a result, not even Tsunade was able to tell anyone the truth about what had happened to him. As you can see, Hinata, whatever your feelings are, you cannot tell me an S-rank secret. She motioned for him to relax. Neji, I'm telling you. If you want to report me to the Anbu, I won't blame you. In fact, I might even thank you. There seemed to be nothing he could do but listen. It was a mission to T-Country, and Akatsuki was present in the form of Uchiha Itachi and Kisame Hoshigaki, who were on the hunt for the Six-Tails Demon. But we also had information on a third party. Because Itachi was there, his younger brother came out to play as well. Do you mean Uchiha Sasuke was there? She gave a nod. According to one of Jiraiya's agents, Sasuke would be there as soon as his older brother arrived. The mission objective was to capture the good Uchiha and kill everyone else. She came to a halt. Everyone was in a good mood the night before. We were all confident that we could pull it off. Sakura and Naruto were especially excited because they believed that once they returned Sasuke to Konoha and removed the curse mark, everything would be fine. Naruto would reclaim his best friend, and Sakura would reclaim her beloved Sasuke-kun. She spit out the word. Naruto and I ended up watching the same movie. I know, Kakashi did it on purpose. He probably had some strange idea that something would happen and one of his Icha scenes would play out. That, however, did not occur. But we, Hinata, stopped because the pain was still too fresh, even after a month. Is it ever going to stop hurting like this? We talked, and it was the best conversation we'd ever had. He was practically bouncing with excitement. And I was content just to be there, the only one who had his undivided attention. He was completely focused on me, and I loved it. We talked about the academy, exams, and old missions before he asked me. She came to a halt as the tears flowed once more. What was wrong with her? He inquired as to whether I had a boyfriend or someone special in my life. I told him that while I didn't have a boyfriend, there was someone very special to me. He was curious as to who it was, but I couldn't tell him because it would have been too embarrassing. She made the word sound cursed. He said whoever it was very lucky to have me because I was a great girl. And any guy would be lucky to have me. She inhaled deeply. I asked if he knew anyone like that. I expected him to tell me about Sakura. But he told me he didn't have anyone because he knew Sakura would always love Sasuke. He had accepted that they would never be anything more than friends. He told me he hoped he wanted to find a girl who could love him. She couldn't speak because the dam had burst. Neji had never been good at expressing his emotions or comforting others, but he did his best. He wrapped his arms around his cousin and assured her that everything would be fine. He let her cry for as long as she wanted, assuring her that she would get through it and that the pain would pass. After a while, the tears stopped. She took a step away from him, wiped her eyes, and continued. My heart was pounding so hard when he said those words that I thought it might burst. I should have informed him. I should have hugged him and told him he already had someone who loved him and would always love him. But I couldn't tell him, even when we were alone and he was crying out to be loved. So I did what I always did. I smiled, blushed, and promised myself that I would tell him later, at a more appropriate time. I was such a wimp. I couldn't tell this precious boy who was my inspiration, this lonely soul whom I had loved and admired for 8 years, that he wasn't alone, that he was loved. All because I couldn't muster the courage to say 3 simple words. I had 100 opportunities. I could have told him on the day of the Genin exam when he was alone, at our first Chunin exam, right here on this field before he went in to fight Neji, all those times I visited him in the hospital, after all the missions we were on together, before he left with Jiraiya, when he returned after 2 years, and every other time I saw him. Even if he had said no, even if he still desired Sakura, I could have told him that my love was his if he ever desired it. And every time, I backed down because I couldn't bear hearing him say he didn't feel the same way. I kept telling myself that there would be a better time. She looked at Neji, trying to make her point. What I never allowed myself to consider was that we were shinobi who had to deal with death every day. Of course, I was aware that death could strike at any time. It was my first lesson at the academy, and I'd seen firsthand how fragile even a powerful shinobi's life could be. We are never guaranteed tomorrow. All we have is today. Neji was bothered by her sincerity. What occurred during the fight? She didn't hold back. It was a calamity. The black bear with 6 tails was roughly the size of the Hokage monument. Akatsuki appeared, followed by Sasuke and 4 ninjas wielding curse seals. We discovered the Uchihas shared another trait before engaging them. Itachi summoned a massive wolf, so the little Uchiha summoned Manda, the boss snake demon, not to be outdone. Then Naruto astounded me and the rest of my team by summoning a massive frog known as Gamabunta. The 3 summons and the 6 tails engaged in a wild 4-way fight. While we were dealing with Kisame and the Curse Seal ninjas, Itachi and Sasuke fought. I've never been in a fight like that before, and I hope I never see another one. After a while, the snake and frog vanished, leaving only the 6 tails and the wolf summon. While Naruto, Shino, and Kurenai were fighting 3 of the cursed seals, Kakashi and Kiba both died fighting Kisame. The 4th cursed seal attacked Kisame while Sakura and I were healing and rescuing Kakashi and Kiba. The 3 cursed seals Naruto's group had been fighting were all dead by the time we finished, but so was Kurenai. Shino was still alive, but most of his bugs had been burned up in the fight, so he couldn't do much else. Kisame had killed the cursed seal he'd been fighting, but he was badly hurt and pulling away. So it was just Naruto, Sakura, Itachi, and Sasuke. She inhaled deeply. The Uchihas were still fighting, and the wolf summons had vanished. When that happened, the 6 tails fled, and Itachi pursued them. Sasuke was pursuing Itachi. Pinky, on the other hand, got in his way. She didn't attack him or do anything other than beg him to stop. Sasuke was in full curse seal mode when he activated his black Chidori and told her to move. She held her ground, and Sasuke charged at her, ready to kill her so he could pursue his brother. But, of course, Naruto stepped in front of her and attacked Sasuke with a massive Rasengan. I was still running to catch up with Naruto, while Sakura stood there watching the 2 of them collide. When they collided, there was a burst of power that temporarily blinded my Byakugan. When I could see again, Sasuke had rushed past Sakura without looking back. And Naruto was lying face down in his own blood. He was still alive, but I could see his chakra fading. I dashed over to his side and flipped him onto his back. His heart had been damaged, and he had a hole in his chest. Sakura and I both poured our chakra into him, but we couldn't help him. She came to a halt again, but there were no more tears. She thought she was done with them. I noticed his chakra moving, but his eyes were fixed on mine. I screamed his name and told him I loved him and would love him for the rest of my life. And then my darling boy smiled up at me, said my name, and was gone. My name was the last thing Naruto-kun ever said to me. She moved her head. I don't recall anything else after that. The next thing I recall is being at his funeral and hearing Tsunade's proclamation. Naruto would be remembered as a leaf hero who spent his entire life defending the village from the Kyuubi. I had no idea he was carrying the 9 tails inside of him. I believe he would have appreciated the statue outside Hokage Tower, as well as knowing that the academy would teach that he was one of Konoha's great heroes. It's amazing how the council agreed to that. They never gave him credit while he was alive, but they were so generous after he died. Though not so kind as to tell the truth about dying at the hands of the traitorous bastard. They want to pretend that he might return someday and replenish the Uchiha clan. She gave Neji a friendly smile. I adored Naruto-kun, but I was never strong enough to be there for him when he needed me. When he was alone, I could have offered him friendship. I could have given him my love when he didn't have any. I could have given him the assurance that no matter what, he would always have me waiting for him. But I let him down by always waiting for a better opportunity to tell him what was on my mind. But, even though he's gone, there's one more thing I can do for him. What can you do for him now, Hinata? Isn't it self-evident, Neji? Her smile split her face in two. I am capable of avenging him. I'm going to become the most ruthless killer this desolate village has ever seen. Then I'm going to find and execute Uchiha Sasuke. That is my dream right now. It is the only thing that matters to me and that I care about. Neji turned off his special vision. He didn't need it any longer. The sweet girl he'd known his entire life was no longer there. All that remained was an empty husk. That's the same thinking that led Sasuke to where he is now, Hinata. If you continue on the same path, you will arrive at the same place. She nodded as she picked up her gym bag, but her cold smile remained. I'm sure that's true, Neji, but I just don't care any longer. She began to walk away. Please tell Kurenai and the others to stop worrying about me. I'm doing fine. Also, please inform the Hokage that I will be applying for Anbu in a few months. Please don't bring up Black Ops. I'll discuss it with her after I pass the exam. And if you could do one more thing for me, Neji. Tell someone you care about them. Don't put it off until a better time comes. There is never a better time than now. She then exited the field and returned home. XXXXXXXXXX. A knock came on the door. It was opened by a young girl. To her great surprise, her teammate was standing there with the most stunning pink rose bouquet she had ever seen. Tenten looked at him, stunned. Are those meant for me? Neji smiled and handed her the papers. Yes. They're lovely, thank you. Is there a special event? Perhaps the special occasion will be our first date, I speculate. Her mouth dropped open and she stared at him. She'd been flirting with him for 4 years and had almost given up hope of breaking through his thick skull. Now, completely unexpectedly, he appears at her door with roses. Who are you, and what did you do to Neji? He gave her a serious look. This was the Neji she remembered. I know you have feelings for me, Tenten, and I have had feelings for you for a long time. She took a deep breath because she had never known whether he cared about her in that way until now. I apologize for taking so long to act on them, but if you'd like, I'd love to have dinner with you tonight. What causes my dream to come true on a Tuesday? I'd love to, Neji, but why now after all this time? He took her hand gently and smiled happily at her soft warm smile. I just decided that now was the best time. The woman screamed and screamed some more. She sucked in a breath as the pain subsided. She raised her eyes to the ninja kneeling over her broken body. The ninja was dressed entirely in black. Except for a pair of pupil-less lavender eyes, the ninja's face was hidden behind a simple mask. Kill me, please. She cried out. 2 fingers stabbed down into her shoulder, causing new pain and causing her to scream again. The ninja patiently counted to 30 before pulling back his fingers. When the screams stopped, she spoke to her softly and politely. When you tell me what I want to know, the pain will end. If you provide me with the necessary information, I promise to make it quick and clean. All right, the woman said quietly. He is in grassland at. 2 fingers dropped again, this time into her hip. She could feel herself screaming once more. She was crying because she knew she had reached the end of her strength. When the ninja reached 30, she drew her fingers back, temporarily ending the agony. I've previously warned you not to lie. I have to give you credit, Karen. I usually break people in 10 minutes. But you're approaching 2 hours. She took a look around the empty laboratory. It was a shambles. 2 bodies were only 10 feet away. I mean, most people hold out because they have some sort of hope. But isn't that not the case with you? I'm referring to the fact that your arms and legs are broken. All of the guards and assistants have been killed. There will be no one to come and save you. You're on your own now. The woman's tears became more intense. Hinata expressed gratitude to Ibiki for his many lessons in psychological torture techniques, as well as Tsunade for his lessons in human anatomy. Why are you fighting so hard when we both know the outcome? You've only been awake for 2 hours, but I have all night, all week, and all month if I need it. I'm afraid I can't tell you. So why not? The sooner you tell me, the sooner I can put an end to your suffering. If I tell you that you're going to murder him. That is correct, Karen-chan, but why should it bother you? By then, you'll be long gone. And, based on your experiments, I doubt you have any moral concerns. She laughed. Aside from where your soul is going, I'm sure you'll see him again soon. I can't, so just kill me. She stabbed herself with 2 fingers and began counting. She asked again when she was released, mildly curious to hear what the sadistic doctor had to say. How come you can't say? Because I love him, she said quietly. Hinata's fists clenched and she had to stop herself from breaking the woman's jaw. Hinata instead pulled out a kunai and slammed it through her left shoulder blade. Even as the woman cried out, she began speaking. If you use that word again, I'll hack off your arms and legs in front of you. Love? You have no idea what that word means. I understand what it's like to love someone more than your own life. Do not dare to compare your pitiful adoration to what I feel. You don't love him, and he doesn't love you either. All you have is a pitiful attraction that you've deluded yourself into believing is love, but it isn't. Comparing your feelings to mine is like comparing a candle's fire to that of the sun. Through her tears, Karen looked up. Do you happen to be Hyuga Hinata? Hinata gave a nod. The person you're referring to is Nar. If you say his name, I'll hack off your right arm. Karen swallowed. He told me about you, saying you were one of the nicest and gentlest people he'd ever met. That is correct, but it was a long time ago. I mean, he was once a respected and admired Leaf Shinobi. Things shift. Karen appeared exhausted and broken. Are you going to stop? No. Karen exhaled a long sigh. He's in Fire Country, in an old dilapidated temple outside of Gakura. It's only about 20 miles to Konoha. Hinata couldn't believe it, but her Byakugan confirmed it was true. Thank you, Karen-chan. I promise you will no longer be in pain. May I make one more request? Hinata gave a nod. Will you please apologize to Sasuke? I will. Karen thanked him and closed her eyes. Hinata reached over and snapped her neck in one motion. She gave the all-clear outside the lab door, and the other 3 members of her team appeared. Set it on fire. She handed one of them a coded sealed note. When you're finished, go back and report to the Hokage. I need to attend to something. Captain, you or not. She moved her head. I'll catch up with you later at Anbu headquarters. She walked away without saying anything else. No one was going to question her given her reputation. She was refilling her canteen at a small stream not more than a couple miles away. She made her decision the moment she learned the location. She took a soldier pill to give herself the most energy and stamina possible. She had 12 hours to get to Gakura. If something went wrong, the Hokage would be aware and would dispatch multiple teams to complete the task. She removed her mask and looked at her reflection in the stream. She was only 22 years old, but a stranger would think she was much older. She was never considered a great beauty, but she was frequently described as pretty or cute. Those days, however, were long gone. Her face was covered in scars, including a large, unsightly burn on the majority of her right cheek and one that ran straight across her jaw from her right ear to the tip of her chin. If she had taken off her ninja armor and clothing, she would have discovered more scars on her arms, legs, and body. Children would sometimes cry when she walked around town without a mask on, and people would look the other way. No man would ever ask her out, but since the only man she had ever desired was no longer alive, it didn't bother her. She was proud of her scars and everything else she had gone through in the previous 6 years. She saw them as nothing more than the cost of becoming the ultimate weapon of the Anbu Black Ops. She had driven herself mercilessly to gain power, and she had succeeded. She had mastered a dozen different weapons, 4 different fighting styles, over 100 jutsus, and her chakra had grown to be nearly as large as Tsunade's. She had surpassed even Kakashi's records as the greatest assassin Anbu had ever seen. And she'd spent the last 2.5 years on an S-rank mission given to her in secret by the Hokage. That mission had, of course, been to find and kill Uchiha Sasuke. Nobody outside her team, not even the council, knew. Tsunade was concerned that if they found out, they would intervene. Hinata had only been in Konoha for about a month at the time. She had pursued every last lead, no matter how tenuous. She'd killed his agents, destroyed his bases, and crippled his organization, but he'd always managed to stay one step ahead of her. Godem Hokage was dying of liver failure, and her time was running out. She had about a month left. The woman who had adored Naruto as a son wished for justice as much as Hinata did. She grimly clung to life and her position as Hokage in order to give Hinata one more chance. No one knew who would be the next Hokage, but her orders were likely to be changed. Hinata imagined how it would feel to lose Tsunade. She was one of the few people she still cared about. She had gradually lost contact with her friends Kurenai, Kiba, Shino, Shikamaru, Sakura, and others because she couldn't find time for any of them. One of her life's great ironies was that her father had finally recognized her worth just as she had turned her back on him and her clan. Hanabi, Neji, and even Hiashi couldn't compete with her. Hiashi had offered to make her heir and step down, but she had declined and told him she didn't want anything to do with him. It was strange, but she worried that her refusal had hurt him. She didn't seem to mind. She was close to her current teammates, but not as close as she had been to Team 8. Their work was too difficult, and she had to work too hard to get them to be friendly. Her only other close friends were Neji, Tenten, and their son Hazashi. He insisted on spending time with her whenever she was in Konoha, even if it was only for an hour as she prepared to leave on another mission. Another irony in her life was that Neji wanted them to be close while she was the one who kept people at a distance. Actually, there was one other person she remained close to. She reached into her uniform for her most prized possession. It was just a simple photograph taken by Kakashi on a mission 6 years ago. When she looked at it, the pain and longing returned in a rush. It was the only picture she had of herself, and she adored it. A 16-year-old Naruto stood there with a huge grin on his face, one hand held out in a V, the other wrapped around the shoulder of a blushing girl who appeared to be about to faint. When she was alone at night, she would look at the picture and pretend it was of them on a date. She'd let herself believe they'd gotten together. Sometimes she dreamed about their wedding day. She fantasized about a small Konoha house filled with the laughter of children playing with their parents. She had a dream of him standing in front of all of Konoha, proclaiming himself Rakudem Hokage and swearing to protect and guide them all. And some mornings when she awoke, her dreams seemed real to her. She'd be overjoyed if she found him sleeping next to her. But then she would recall. Her eyes welled up with tears. It astounded her that a murderer like her could have a heart at all. She could torture someone for hours without blinking, but seeing an old photo would break her and leave her a sobbing mess. Wasn't it said that time heals all wounds? Why was it still hurting so much? Naruto. She cried out his name and sobbed on her knees. He was on his knees, palms together in prayer, eyes closed, silently speaking the words his mother had taught him a lifetime ago. Please forgive my sins. He closed his eyes and finished his prayer. 2 candles in a picture frame with his clan symbol adorned the dusty altar in front of him. Everything was deafeningly quiet. He patiently waited. Greetings, Hinata. He only heard her footsteps after that. She was about 20 feet behind him, directly behind him. He did not turn around or attempt to stand. "Hello there, Sasuke. It's been a while, hasn't it?" "Yeah, 6 years, and I'm assuming the rest of your team is outside." "No, I came by myself." He turned around to look. Except for the absence of her mask, she was dressed in her usual black uniform. Her posture appeared to be relaxed. One hand was on her katana's hilt, the other on her hip. "Isn't this something personal?" "Yeah, before we begin, Karen asked me to express her regret." He gave a nod. "Thank you. It's comforting to know she was devoted to me." "Yes, I suppose a missing nin, even one as powerful as you, would be a rare commodity. If you don't mind, may I ask what god you were praying to?" "I was praying to my forefathers." She nodded and said, "That, at the very least, makes sense. I suppose they have no choice but to listen to the last Uchiha's prayers." "Are you the last Uchiha?" He nodded slowly. "I assassinated Itachi 2 months ago." She cocked her head to look at him. Was it all worthwhile? He thought about it. He'd been asking himself the same question for the past 2 months. "I'm not sure. I felt relieved right after I killed him, as if everything I'd done had been vindicated. All of my sacrifices had been worthwhile because I had finally avenged my family. But later on, I just felt empty. What did I have now that I wasn't an avenger?" For a brief moment, they were both deafeningly silent. "How is Sakura doing?" "Pinky? We kind of fell out of touch. Tenten and her are close, so I hear she's fine. She's been married to Lee for 2 years, and I hear she's expecting a child in a few months." Sasuke shut his eyes. "I had always hoped to see her again. I wanted to express my gratitude to her for not giving up on me. However, she did." Sasuke blinked his eyes open. "Naruto, after you killed her, she stopped talking about you. If she still has feelings for you, Sasuke, she keeps them to herself. Given the circumstances, this is probably for the best. I guess a part of me hoped she'd help me rebuild my clan." Hinata burst out laughing. "Oh, good one. The heartless avenger who murders his best friend wants to be a father." Sasuke scowled at her and rose to his feet slowly to face her. "Did I injure your pride by raising your heartbeats? I'm sorry, but if you wanted to restore your clan, you should have stayed in Konoha, married Sakura, and had children. I know it makes no difference, Hinata, but please accept my apologies. I truly regret what I had to do. Do you still don't get it? You were under no obligation to do any of it. You decided to become an avenger. You chose to abandon Konoha and your friends. You chose to kill anyone who stood in your way of Itachi. On the day you left, you told Sakura that new paths would open up. You were well aware of what you were doing, curse mark or no curse mark. You can't take it all back now with a, 'I'm sorry.' Hinata, how about you? You have murdered more people than I have. You, too, are an avenger." She laughed. "The difference is that I don't pretend it was forced on me. I chose it because I knew how much it would cost." His head shook. "No, you don't. You won't know until it's finished." He inhaled deeply. "I realized something after I killed Itachi. I finally understood why he let me live. You were only a child." He gave her a cold stare. There were other children, including babies, in the Uchiha compound. I believe Itachi went insane, but a part of him was rational enough to realize he couldn't live with his guilt. He needed someone to make sure he didn't have to. Hinata remained silent. He paused for a moment. He shrugged and raised his curse seal to the 2nd level. As he did so, she calmly drew her katana and took a fighting stance. "I'll say it one more time, I'm sorry, Hinata." "So am I." Her breathing was even, and she could feel the blood pounding in her ears. She was prepared. Everything she had done for the previous 6 years had led up to this moment. Her sword was dipped. "Your blood on my blade," she said quietly. If you can, take it. He took a deep breath and flew up into the vaulted ceiling about 30 feet above her, his hands flashing together. Grand Fireball Jutsu spit 3 massive boulders of flame. She dashed forward in his direction. Their fight was brutal, and by the end, they were both nearly depleted of chakra. He'd tried to hit her with his black Chidori, but she was too quick for him. Naruto had once told her how Sasuke had nearly died fighting Haku in Wave Country. She had riddled him with hundreds of senbon needles throughout their fight, slowly paralyzing him. She'd cut him several times with her katana, getting deeper cuts as the needles slowed him down. And despite his ability and power, Sasuke was unable to reach her or break through her ultimate defense. In the end, he lay broken on the temple floor, unable to sit up, with over 100 needles protruding from him. He had returned to human form after reverting from his cursed seal. She noticed he had the Mangekyo Sharingan activated, but that was pointless because she had her Byakugan. "Oh, Sasuke," she said, shaking her head. "You should know that while your eyes could stop every other girl in our academy, they never did anything for me." She stood calmly over him, her bloodied katana at her side. He genuinely smirked. "Your eyes were always my ideal foe. That's why I've always avoided you. That, and the fact that I didn't want to kill another of my friends. Sasuke, we haven't been friends in a long time." He turned off his Sharingan. "I know," he admitted sadly. She lowered her gaze to him. The man she had despised and pursued for 6 years. She couldn't believe it, but she felt a smidgen of sympathy for him. "This temple," she explained. "The Hokage Tower is only about 20 miles away. You didn't have any guards, traps, or defenses. You were also in a room with only one exit. You had finished running, didn't you?" He nodded, and he seemed strangely at ease now that the fighting was over. "There's nothing left for me now that Itachi is gone. Even restoring my clan is impossible. My enemies will not relent." She felt nothing but sadness as she looked down at his broken body. "What is the point of all this blood and death? If it means anything to you, Sasuke, I am sorry, and I forgive you." He gave her a genuine smile. "Thank you, Hinata. That means a lot to me. Karen made one last request, which you granted. May I have one as well?" "Of course," she says. "The room I was staying in is located upstairs. There's a letter addressed to Sakura by my bed. Would you make sure she understands?" "I will. Hinata, there is one more thing. You asked if it was worthwhile. It wasn't, and I think you'll see that soon." He closed his eyes. "Please end it right now." She raised her sword. "Farewell, Sasuke." Her sword shattered, and the last Uchiha vanished. After a month. It was 2 a.m., and she was looking up into the eyes of her beloved Naruto-kun. She had always thought it was appropriate that the statue depicted him smiling at the entire world. Some idiots claimed it was demeaning, but they had never met him. She knew he'd want everyone to see him smiling. She looked up into his face, allowing the agony to wash over her. She gave in and rejoiced in the tears. It wasn't worth it, as Sasuke had predicted. And she knew deep down in her heart that Naruto would never have wanted this for her. She'd changed drastically from the girl he'd known, and there was no turning back. She'd come here now because she'd decided there was no way forward for her either. Tsunade had passed away 2 days before Sasuke. She had hung on to see her heart's son avenged. She had given up after that. Nobody knew who would be the next Hokage, not that it mattered. With Tsunade gone, one more link to the outside world was severed. She had delivered the letter to Sakura exactly on time. Sakura had read it and had immediately become distraught. She had cried for days, with no one, not even her husband or her best friend Ino, able to console her. Neji had done everything he could to help her, even offering to let her move in with them so she would be less alone. She had deeply appreciated her cousin's kindness, but had declined. She'd changed too much to act as if she belonged anywhere. And she cared too much about Neji, Tenten, and their son to bring them down with her own sorrow. Of course, there were still missions, and there were always bad guys to kill, and she was still the best of the best. She was young and healthy, and she could easily live another 40 or 50 years. To her, 40 years sounded like a prison sentence. She looked up into his bright eyes. "Hello, Naruto-kun. I'm sure you already know why I've come here. I'm sure you're dissatisfied with me. As usual, I end up taking the easy way out. But you see, you were always the one who inspired me. I've always wished I was as brave as you. But I can't muster the courage without you. Please forgive me, Naruto-kun, if I have let you down yet again. And please know that no matter what happens to me, my love is yours now and forever." She took out her wakizashi and tucked the tip beneath her ribcage. She said a silent prayer to Kami or whoever was listening, requesting only one thing. That if a monster like her could be forgiven, she could see him one last time. Then she drove her blade up and in with all her might. She heard his voice after the pain had subsided and there was only light. "I love you, Hinata. I'm waiting for you to join me." She was cheerful and boldly entered the light.
That's it for today. If you enjoy this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.